Hi, time for another research update from me, the Breath Geek, as a new piece of interesting research about breathwork has come out to support the benefits that we like to claim in the breathwork industry, and it's a new trial conducted by Imperial College London and published in The Lancet, so very strong journal to be published in, which gives this study a lot of credibility, and it's very relevant because it is about long COVID. And this study was conducted using a breathwork technique called ENO, which is a singing and breathwork technique conducted by and created by some opera singers. And what makes this study particularly interesting is because it's online. It was conducted using Zoom, with the participants doing breathwork over Zoom over 6 weeks. And that is interesting because it's the first study I have seen that's not done in person. A lot of the research, pretty much all the research on conscious connected breathwork at least, has always been done in person. So people, I guess, have been wondering whether or not Zoom breathwork, which I teach, is actually as effective. So yeah, this was particularly interesting in that regard. So the main measure they were looking to test was health-related quality of life with people who have continuing symptoms of breathlessness from COVID. And needless to say, it probably wouldn't get published if it didn't have good results, but it did have good results. People had better quality of life after doing this 6-week course of breathwork, which is a very good sign for breathworkers out there, because a lot of us claim that breathwork is not just good for emotional and psychological symptoms, it's also good for physiological symptoms and acute chronic conditions like autoimmune conditions. This is obviously, well, not obviously, but it's not an autoimmune condition, or it's not classified as that at the moment, but it does show it has physiological benefits as well. Saying that, it doesn't actually say it had any physical improvements, i.e. there were no clinical significance in people's physical symptoms, but it did have real benefits in people's mental benefits and their quality of life. So what we can say from this study is breathwork improves people's mental state, but it doesn't improve the actual symptoms of long COVID, which include breathlessness. So what you could say from this is that breathwork would be a really good adjunct treatment to other mainstream treatments. Another thing that I really liked about this trial is it's a single blind, not a double blind, but it is really hard to blind groups of breathwork. This is what I'm struggling with in my dissertation proposal for my PhD, is the ethics of just blinding a group, i.e. doing one group who come in to do breathwork and then another group who just get a placebo. So in this case, the placebo was just treatment as usual. So they had half the participants who just got nothing and had to continue suffering, which is a little bit uncomfortable, but in the name of science, it is a useful thing. So this is a particularly good study because they did have a placebo group, and people in the treatment group had better results than those in the placebo. Things to consider and question about this study would be whether or not the music involved was what was really helping people, or whether or not it was being in a group of people who were suffering at the same time. You know, community co-regulation is a really important part of healing, so they didn't really isolate whether or not it was the breath work, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not the breath work. It just means that breathing in groups online is effective for things like anxiety and quality of life related to COVID. So let's not get carried away and say breathwork is the panacea to cure everyone's long COVID, because that's not what this study shows, but it is good research done in a reputable area. So that is the summary of this latest piece of research. Exciting stuff if you are me, or if you're a breathworker, or you're considering trying breathwork. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you are looking forward to more of me dissecting the boring research that you get out there, because I think there is a need for that, because there is a lot of research that comes out about these types of things, and if you read it in newspapers, they're not really trying to tell you the real story. They're trying to sell advertisements and things, and hence having a balanced view of research by someone who, well, I'm starting to learn a little bit more about research. I read it every day for my PhD. I think it's a bit more useful and a bit more balanced to get a researcher's point of view than getting it from something like the Daily Mail, for example. But yeah, thank you for watching.